What's going on, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Dan, Kevin, Stevie P coming at you. What's going on, fellas?
What is going on, world? What's going on, fellas?
What's up, guys? What's up, listeners?
All right, so today is our Wednesday podcast. We are going to get into our rankings for the week. We are going to break down the Thursday night game, and we're going to answer some start-sit questions that we have been posed with. So. But before we get into that, remember, check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That's www.4thandinchesff.com for a bunch of content. You got articles, blogs, player profiles, and you can subscribe to our VIP content. This will give you access to DFS info and the cheat codes that we will keep updated monthly. So check that out, and also look for us on the Fantasy Life app. We'll be doing start-sit questions throughout the year on there. And if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating. And now the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, speaking Tuesday, Panthers coach Ron Rivera admitted Cam Newton's foot was uncertain for Week 3 against the Cardinals. So we kind of know that Cam might not be playing. It's sounding more and more like he's not going to be playing. And, we'll let you guys know on Friday how that goes. Washington Post reports that it's unclear if the league is going to put Antonio Brown on the commissioner's exempt list. I mean, that's basically all we're going to say about Antonio. We don't know anything, just like nobody else knows anything. Jenna Lane reports that the Jaguars are seeking 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey. Speaking about O.J. Howard, slow start on Tuesday. Bucs coach Bruce Arians said that the balls will come. They better start coming. I'll tell you what. Tom Pelissero reports Deshaun Jackson's groin is expected to miss Sunday's game against the Lions and will likely remain sidelined for the Eagles' Week 4 Thursday night contest. So, it's a quick turnaround, so we kind of expected that. Patriots placed left tackle Isaiah Wynn on injured reserve with a toe-foot injury. The Lions release running back C.J. Anderson. Goodbye, C.J. Good riddance. No, I'm kidding. You don't want anybody to lose their job, but... man, am I happy that he's gone. Sam Darnold is targeting a Week 5 return from his mono. He better stop kissing chicks. Browns coach Freddie Kitchens said he needs to get the ball out of Baker Mayfield's hands quicker because Mayfield is taking too many hits. I agree, and I don't think that is a coaching problem. I think that is a Baker Mayfield problem. NFL Network Ian Rappaport reports that Jalen Ramsey is unlikely to be traded prior to Thursday's night game. So that's tomorrow, so we kind of know that's probably not going to happen. Coach Doug Peterson said Alshon Jeffrey is day-to-day with his calf injury. So, we were hearing a couple of days ago that it might be a 2 to 3 week injury, and now they're saying it's day-to-day, so we will have to keep our eyes and ears open to that.
Yeah, Doug also said that Deshaun was day-to-day too, so...
yeah, we're gonna.
I don't know how much stock you can put into it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. We're gonna have to listen. David Njoku is not practicing Wednesday. He has a concussion. He also has a wrist injury that they are concerned about. So we are going to have to keep our eyes open and ears open to that. James Conner knee says he is good to go for Week 3 against the 49ers. Coach Freddie Kitchen said he would love to get the ball in Nick Chubb's hands more. So, I would like to hear that because I have Chubb in a couple spots. Sterling Shepard's concussion remains in the league concussion protocol. Devin Singletary's hamstring is practicing on Wednesday. Cam Newton is not practicing Wednesday. We basically said about Cam. He's probably not playing. Kyle Shanahan hints that Jeff Wilson is the 49ers' preferred red zone back. He actually looked good the other day in the red zone, so I wouldn't be surprised if that is the move they go with going forward. Coach Sean Payton refused to name Teddy Bridgewater the Saints starter in Week 3 against the Seahawks. Coach Matt LaFleur said he wants to even up the touches between Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Like, real quick, is this not the most ridiculous thing in fantasy football right now. Like, just give this man the ball already. Like, stop playing games. He showed what he could do with 23 touches. It was the first time he had ever had 20 carries in a game, and my man had over 100 yards and a touchdown. Like, just unleash this dude. Let him be. Like, let him be the running back that he looks like he is. I don't understand. End of rant.
It's a rookie coach for you.
It's ridiculous, dude. He did
I
the
mean,
same
it wasn't
thing.
a rookie coach because McCarthy did the same thing, so it's not a rookie coach.
But this is the thing. Like, Matt LaFleur did the same thing last year with Derrick Henry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Derrick Henry is clearly the better back than Deion Lewis, and he did the same thing. So, you know what I mean? This makes me super nervous. Anyway, Chiefs left tackle Eric Fisher is undergoing sports hernia surgery and will be sidelined in multiple weeks. Damian Williams' knee is not practicing Wednesday. You're definitely going to have to make sure you guys stay up to date with that. LaShawn McCoy isn't practicing either, so both those guys definitely want to keep your eyes out and ears out for.
Actually, I think Shady did practice today.
I think it said limited. I think he was on the what is that, recovery field or whatever that's called.
Oh, okay.
Browns offensive tackle Chris Hubbard is in a walking boot. That sucks. Doug Marone said Jalen Ramsey will play Thursday night. Cam Robinson, left tackle for the Jaguars, will start Thursday night. He's been having a knee issue, and now they're saying he's going to start, so that's a big deal. Jameis Winston has a foot injury, is expected to start against the Giants. Marlon Mack missed practice with a calf. I think that's precautionary. He's had that issue. I think he heard it in like the third quarter or something. He still played in the game, and they're just making sure that he's okay. Tom Brady is limited at practice. Anything about Tom Brady that pops up, I just don't ignore. The dude is Iron Man. Colts waive quarterback Chad Kelly. He'll definitely get picked up somewhere. He looked good in the preseason. Sam Darnold said he has full confidence he'll be ready for New York's Week 5 matchup against the Eagles. Thank God for the Eagles. James Conner knee missed practice Wednesday. The Raiders acquired Trevor Davis from the Packers. LaShawn McCoy missed practice Wednesday.
There you go. So apparently I was wrong.
Adam Schefter reports David Njoku's concussion and wrist is seeking a second opinion on his wrist injury. So, like I said, he had a wrist injury, and we don't know how serious that is. We're going to have to check that out. Oh, here we go. It just popped up an hour ago. Multiple sources confirmed David Njoku suffered a broken wrist. That is a big deal. I have not heard of too many pass catchers playing with a broken wrist. So, that's a big deal. Josh Jacobs was limited in practice on Wednesday with a hip. They're saying it's a hip pointer. It's nothing too serious. They're expecting him to play. Traquan Smith did not practice on Wednesday with an ankle injury. NFL Media's Ian Rappaport reports that Cam Newton is in a walking boot and trending towards not playing Week 3. And that is the news. So anything you guys want to hit up?
We'll start with Cam. I mean, I think that's pretty big news. Hopefully this contributed to a little bit of his rocky play in the first 2 weeks, and maybe he takes a week off and gets himself right and can come back a little bit better. But that's definitely concerning if you drafted Cam Newton as your number one guy. Hopefully you got a second quarterback, because most drafts were done. Cam had that foot injury. So, this has just been Cam Newton, on a downward trend for the last, 3 years, pretty much since the MVP season.
Yeah, I agree. Cam
is
is
not fantasy related, but the Jalen Ramsey 2 draft pick things that's ridiculous. 2 first rounders. I know the guy's, the best in the league, but that's nuts.
I'll tell you what, if I was the Chiefs, I might give that up. The Chiefs are desperate need of cornerback play, and if they could get Jalen Ramsey on the team, I think that would make a huge difference in their defense, because they can rush the passer. They just can't stop people in the secondary. But for me, the biggest thing I think I want to talk about, I mean, David Njoku really hasn't been that, productive, so, I'm not going to really hit on him too much. But the LaShawn McCoy, Damian Williams, both those guys have looked good. They're both basically splitting touches, and you definitely want to make sure that they are playing. If they're not playing, Thompson is definitely a guy that, needs to be picked up in basically all leagues.
I will say this. I will say this about that. Um, when watching that game, when both of those guys were out, they actually had Darrell Williams on the field
Yeah.
during like most of the fourth quarter. I don't know if that's going to be the trend going forward, or I don't know if Thompson was even active. I'm sure he was, but Darrell Williams was on the field in the fourth quarter instead of Darwin Thompson.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely the bigger of the two backs, so that might be the reason they were doing that. They had a lead. They were just trying to, finish that game out. So definitely both of those guys are viable, especially, if, because we don't know yet. It doesn't sound like we have any confirmation that Shady's going to play or Damian Williams is going to play. I mean, it sounds like they're trending, especially LaShawn. It sounds like he's kind of trending to playing from what we're reading, but we don't know for sure. They could both sit out, and if they both sit out, I think both those guys are viable. I don't think it's going to be a one person job. I think he's going to split carries between those guys and, the pass catching work. Really, the only other thing that I saw was, what was it? There was something that we read here. Eric Fisher. Eric Fisher going under, sports hernia surgery. That does hurt the Chiefs' offensive line. So I'm not going to downgrade the Chiefs, but it's definitely something you're going to want to look at because they're playing the Ravens this week, and the Ravens can get after the passer. So, if Eric Fisher's not playing, and we see the ball having to come out of Pat Mahomes' hands a lot sooner than he wants, he might not be able to go deep as much as he does in any ordinary game. So they might want to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is like, this offense waits around, airs the ball out down the field. That stuff takes time, and if he can't have that time, Patrick Mahomes may not be as effective if he doesn't have his starting left tackle.
Yep. And the last thing, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. I just want to hit on this real quick. We have 2 more minutes.
You did it already?
Yeah. I just, for me, I want to know how you guys feel because, I basically said my piece. But the one thing I will say is, he got 23 touches last week, which was promising. So maybe this is just coach speak to try to throw other teams off. You know what I mean? But it makes me a little bit nervous, especially because I saw what happened with Derrick Henry last year and Deion Lewis. So how do you guys feel?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Aaron Jones is clearly the better back. I think it's more coach speak, honestly, because if you looked in, week 1, he, they were splitting time a little bit more than they were in week 2. Week 2 was kind of mostly Aaron Jones out there, although, Williams got the touchdown on the first screen pass. But I just think it's coach speak. I think it's clearly a situation of, throwing teams off, maybe trying to. I really don't understand why they do that anyway, just because I don't think the player makes a difference in this case. I think they're very similar players. Both are relatively, I don't want to say good, but what relatively average catchers of the ball out of the backfield. They both have a similar running style. It's not like one's more of a pass catching back and the other's more of a big back. Like they're very similar backs, so it's not like you're changing the pace up. So I don't know what coach speak really does here, but I just don't see how you can go away from Aaron Jones after how good he looked in week 2.
Yeah, aside from that just that one touchdown by Williams last week, I mean, he hasn't played good. He had 5 carries for no yards in week 1. I mean, obviously that's up against the Bears defense, which is just stout. But I mean, even Jones, we know Jones got off to a rough start too. But I mean, even last week he averaged 9 carries for 28 yards, so 3 yards a carry basically. And it just, I mean, that's going to put him at like 2 yards a carry through 2 weeks. Doesn't really, to me, equal out to splitting time with a guy that averaged over 5 yards a carry last week. So I don't know what the talk is. I don't know if they just don't want to run Aaron Jones into the ground, but I mean, if he's willing to and he's more productive, keep him in there.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, and one more thing I do want to touch on is I don't remember hearing if you said it. I might have just been kind of nodding off at that time, but the Sean Payton not naming Teddy Bridgewater as a starter and possibly starting Taysom Hill.
Yep.
I'm actually interested in this because, I think that they kind of want Taysom Hill to be the quarterback of the future. I don't necessarily think they want Teddy Bridgewater to be the guy. I think they kind of brought Teddy in, hoping that somebody could get hurt and maybe they could trade Teddy and get a pick. So I'm actually interested in this. I don't know how it relates to fantasy. It may hurt Michael Thomas if Taysom Hill is in, because obviously Taysom Hill is more of a guy that's going to, probably, if there's a little pressure on, he's probably, not scrambling outside the pocket and looking down the field. He's probably taken off. So, Kamara the same way. Usually those mobile quarterbacks don't really throw to the running back as much. So I am interested to see how that Saints quarterback situation plays out, especially if he does go with Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sean Payton loves Taysom Hill. I mean, he tries to throw him in the game as much as he can. You see him running tight end routes. You see him out there running wide receiver slot routes. You see him coming out of the backfield as a ball carrier, like as a fullback. He's got him all over the field. I think he likes how dynamic he is, and I think that he's a playmaker that, I think Sean Payton really likes. So yeah, I agree. I think if he is the starting quarterback, he could have, Lamar Jackson upside from last year. Just a guy that is a raw thrower of the football and, can run a hell of a lot. So, it's going to be interesting to see that.
Yeah, he was exciting last year for the for the short time that we got to see him. I know he lined up at quarterback a bunch. They had Brees spread out to receiver or somewhere out front, and most of the times on those plays he was running the ball, but he showed off that he could throw a little bit, so definitely something to wait and see what happens.
All right, so let's get to these questions. All right,
yeah, why don't we do the breakdown for tomorrow?
You want to do the breakdown first? Okay,
Yeah,
let's do the breakdown.
Really quick. Yeah. So tomorrow night's game, the Titans at the Jaguars. Let's just get into it. I mean, you're probably not starting these quarterbacks. From the Jaguar side of the ball, you're definitely starting Fournette, and that's probably it. And from the Titans side of the ball, you're starting, Derrick Henry and possibly Delaney Walker. Anybody else that you guys see start worthy?
DJ Chalk, maybe. I mean, if you need a flex, right now everyone's got him ranked higher than DD. He's just been more productive over 2 weeks. Seems like he's, just running better routes. But this Titans defense has looked really, really good. So, I mean, I wouldn't say he's a must start, but if he's an option for you, your flex position, then I'd give him a go. But I'm not high on it this week just because this Titans defense has been pretty good lately.
Yeah, I agree. I like, I think that DJ Chark could be, somebody that you play. I mean, to me, Minshew is not somebody that I'm starting, obviously, but I think he moved the ball well, and he looked for Chark a lot. He looks for DJ a lot. I mean, in the two games to start the season, he's had 9 targets, so he is getting targeted. You know what I mean? So I think he's going to continue to look for him. DD had 5 last week. I think he had 6 targets the week before, 4 catches. So, I do think he is an accurate thrower of the football, 23 to 33 this past week. And then, last week he set the single game rookie record. I think it was, like 28 completions or something like that, 33 throws or something like that.
Yeah, it was 22 or 25.
Yeah, something like that. So, his completion percentage was great. So he obviously can complete passes in the NFL. And, I definitely would start, Chark if you needed a, wide receiver 3 or a flex option you were hurting.
Real quick, too. I would have no problem with starting either of these defenses. I mean, we predict it's going to be a low-scoring game, like a, 17 to 14, 14-10 type game. But with that being said, it'll be like 40 to 30. But I've no problem starting either of these defenses. I think it's definitely going to be for the Fournette and Derrick Henry show. And normally when there's running backs, power running backs. It's going to be a lot of moving the chains and a lot of punts.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. So, all right. I think that pretty much narrows down it from a fantasy aspect, Thursday night game, right? I don't think there's anything more we have to add. So I think now, Steve, let's get into these start set questions.
All right, our first question comes from Pro Palms. Pro Palms actually is Clay, who was on the podcast last week. He asks, pick 3 PPR. Carson, Fournette, Chubb, and Carrion. He says, consider the matchups. So they all have tough matchups this week. So for me, Carson's going up. All right, so, for those guys, we got Chris Carson going up against, who is Carson playing?
Saints.
The Saints. Okay, so the Saints, that's a tough matchup. You got Fournette, obviously, in tomorrow night against the Titans. Chubb will be going up against the Rams, and then you got Carrion going against Philly. Go ahead, Kev.
The one guy I'd be sitting is Carrion. I got Chubb at 7 still. I mean, I think they're going to give him a lot of work. You just heard the coach talk about keeping the ball out of Baker's hands so he's not getting hit as much and, giving Chubb the ball more. So I think I got Chubb at 7. Carson, I have at 12 against the Saints, and I have Fournette at 13. Carrion, I have at 20. I honestly, was listening to the CBS podcast, and a point was made. I kind of started to agree with it. The release of C.J. Anderson could be a bad thing for Carrion, just because I think it gives Ty Johnson more passing work out of the backfield. It gives him more of a defined role, and Carrion could probably see less of that passing work. So that's something I'm just paying attention to with Carrion, but it's definitely a tough matchup against Philly, and I like the other 3 guys better.
Yeah, I agree. I have, in my rankings, I have Chris Carson at 19. I have Carrion Johnson at 22. So, the other guys I have in my top 10. So, it's one of the, no, I'm sorry. I have Nick Chubb at 13. I have Fournette at 9. So for me, it's just Carrion has a tough match against these Eagles defense. You know what I mean? They showed the first 2 weeks of the season that they are no joke. They have been a formidable rushing defense for, I want to say, the past 3 seasons. Basically since, Fletcher Cox has been there. Fletcher Cox is a big cog in the wheel, boy. He is a dude that just clogs up the middle, and you have to put 2 defenders on him, because if you don't, he just bull rushes his way in and just disrupts everything. So, Carrion's going to have a tough go of it this week, I think. I still have him in my top 24 because, you drafted him too high to sit him, but, I think he's going to be a rough sledding for him this week.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I think I answered that too on our Fantasy Life app, with saying Carrion's got the worst of the matchups playing against the Eagles, and Steve hit it right on the head with, Fletcher Cox just in that middle. Nobody ever, rushers rarely break 50, 60 yards against the Eagles, and that's just, you can't get you can't find any running room in that middle with Fletcher there. I have Carrion at 20. I got Carson at 16. Chubb at 12, and I got Leonard Fournette pretty high this week, actually, just because I think that there's not going to be a lot of passing in this game tomorrow night. So I got Leonard Fournette pretty high. But yep, I think any of these 4 are great options. It's tough to sit Carrion, but if you have to sit one guy, if you got those other 3, then I would say Carrion. But any of these guys, can have a big week. I just think that Carrion against the Eagles is the least expected.
All right. So our next question comes from Rem1214. He says, should I start Brissett or Goff this week? So, just going to my rankings, I have Jacoby Brissett at, let's see here. What do I have Jacoby? Jacoby Brissett is at 25. I actually got to change that. I wanted to move him up. I must have left him low, but I have Jared Goff at 10. I think, the Browns, to me, week 1, made Marcus Mariota look like a superstar. He was winging it all over the yard. 2 easy touchdowns to Delaney Walker. I didn't see anything from this, Browns pass defense in week 1, and you can't even say week 2 because the Jets just couldn't throw the ball at all, period. So you kind of got to scratch that game and just see what you saw week 1. And with what I saw week 1, the Browns pass defense doesn't look that formidable to me. I think that Jared Goff is definitely going to be winging this thing all game long. He's a top 10 guy for me. And, by week's end, I actually might move him ahead of Stafford. Right now I have him behind Stafford and Aaron Rodgers. I might actually move him ahead of Stafford, depending on how I feel. But right now he's at 10 for me.
Yeah, for me, Jared Goff's at 12 and Jacoby Brissett is at 19. I would go Jared Goff as well.
Yeah, I got Goff at 10 and Brissett is low 20s, mid 20s. So 21. So, yep, for me, definitely Goff is for sure. If he's ranked 10, then he's a QB1 in my book. And I think that, like Steve said, this Browns defense, they played a third string quarterback and Le'Veon still moved the ball up and down on them. So, they're just, I don't think they're a good defense. Offensively, they might be clicking a little bit with Jets are just a bad team. You really can't take that game with any grain of salt. This will be the test for the Browns this week.
Exactly. All right, so our next question comes from Nick2222. Robert Woods or Emmanuel Sanders?
For me, I got Woods high this week. Last week he only got 2 targets, caught both of them. I think he had a long one taken back on a penalty, but to me, I think this is going to be a Robert Woods week in for the Rams, and I have Robert Woods at 16. I have Emmanuel Sanders at 23. I'm going with Robert Woods.
Yeah, I agree. I have Robert Woods at 18 and Emmanuel Sanders at 23. Like I said, I just don't believe in this Browns pass defense, and they're going to have to prove it to me before I'm, sitting Robert Woods over for Emmanuel Sanders.
I actually got Sanders higher. I moved Sanders way up. I think he's been playing awesome. I got Sanders at 20, and I don't think Robert Woods is going to have a bad week. I have him lower. I got him 30. I just think that I loved what I saw from Cooper Kupp last week. I've definitely been moving Cooper up in the rankings, so I got him higher, and then Brandon Cooks just kind of stays where he's at. He's consistent. So I got Sanders, but not by much. I think they're both pretty even.
All right, so we have a drop question. Should I keep? This is also from Pro Palm. Should I keep Justice Hill or grab Darwin Thompson? This question I actually like. What do you guys think?
If I'm thinking about, if it's me, I'm actually picking up Darwin Thompson. We just haven't seen enough out of Justice Hill, and with the 2 injuries to the Chiefs' backfield, Darwin Thompson could see a little bit more work. So yeah, I would probably drop Hill for Thompson.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
No, yeah, I agree. If you need a guy right now, I would definitely say Darwin Thompson. But if you are, content with the running backs that you have, I would hold on to Hill, because I think Hill later on in the season could pay big dividends. He's a guy that I have in a bunch of leagues, and I'm not even thinking about dropping him, because in most leagues where I took him, I made sure I had really good running backs, because I assumed that I was going to be waiting on Hill till at least week 6 or 7 to see some more work for him. So for me, Hill is definitely a guy I'm keeping for the long term, and if I need somebody this week, it's going to be Darwin Thompson I'm picking up.
Yeah, I pretty much, I think I answered the question exactly like that on the site. And Thompson for right now, Hill for the long term. So definitely Thompson, especially with these injuries, is going to get more, a higher ceiling right now than Hill. Hill hasn't really gotten much of anything, but that Lamar Jackson and the Mark Ingram show has been what's been getting them get by. So ride with what's working.
Exactly. All right, so we actually have a trade question here, guys. Would you trade Lamar Jackson straight up for DeAndre Hopkins? Oh,
Hell
man.
no.
Oh, man. All right, what do you guys think?
I mean,
Got my answer.
Is he getting Hopkins, or is he giving?
He's getting Hopkins. He would be giving Lamar Jackson up to get DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh
Yes.
yes, I would. Yes,
Yes.
I would do that. Yes,
Yes.
okay. I thought he was trading Hopkins to get Lamar Jackson. No, I would definitely trade Lamar Jackson to get DeAndre Hopkins.
Yes,
Without
100%. That to me, that is a no-brainer. I asked this question because to me, I think this is just silly. You know, if you can, and this is, I put this in the buy sell. I have Lamar Jackson as a sell. And this is exactly the reason why, because people are so enamored by the points that he's putting up that they're willing to give up DeAndre Hopkins for him. Like, I'm letting you know, if you have DeAndre Hopkins plus the 12th best quarterback in fantasy football, their points combined are going to be higher than Lamar Jackson and whatever the hell else that you have on your team. You know what I mean? Just, you have to think it's a total points thing, guys. I mean, you have to consider total points. I mean, obviously Lamar Jackson will score more points than DeAndre Hopkins. That's very easy to figure out. But is he going to score more points than DeAndre Hopkins and Jared Goff? No. No, he's not. So, to me, no brainer. Yes, you do this in a heartbeat.
Yeah, this basically is the definition of your article, Steve, with the buy, sell high, because his stock
You're
is
selling. If you get DeAndre Hopkins, bro, you
Yeah.
are selling. You are selling
So
Apple
you're
stock,
selling
bro.
for a first round pick. That's a first round. You're getting a first round pick for a guy you drafted in the
Round
in the
13.
9th, 10th round. Like,
You in leagues before
No doubt.
before he started getting blown up, he was going around 13, 14.
Yeah.
Like, you kidding me? That's
absolutely.
insane. Okay, we have another trade question, guys, and this one is
Yeah,
from.
Let's
Caleb-
make this the last one, and we'll get into some differences in our ranks.
Okay, so we have. Actually, you know what? Then if we're gonna make it the last one, let's get a really good one. Okay, so we have a very good question here. So the question is by JHKC, full PPR, David Montgomery at Washington or Sony Michel at the Jets as an RB2. So for me, I have Sony Michel at 18 and I have David Montgomery at 28. For me, I wrote this actually in the buy and sell also. David Montgomery has not shown me anything that makes me think that he is very good at football. And I said it before the season started. I was talking about him before the season started. I was not very high on him. His college tape did not make me super excited. A lot of people were more excited than I was. I saw a very slow running back that, broke tackles and made guys miss. He definitely can make guys miss, but, in the NFL, if you don't have the speed to get outside, it is very different in college than it is in the NFL. When you have fast corners and linebackers running after you, then, college running back, college corners and linebackers is a completely different game. So for me, he's not going to break as many tackles and get those wide open lanes that he got in college. So, he's got a lot to prove to me before I'm putting him in my lineup over Sony.
All right, so for me, I have Michelle 21, Montgomery 22. I would go with Michelle simply because I do think this is going to be a butt whooping, and you're going to probably see a lot of what you saw last week, which was a ton of Sony Michel running the football in the second half. So I think Sony Michel is just going to get a ton of work against the Jets. I think the Patriots are going to beat up on them, and Montgomery, I do like his matchup against the Redskins, but I'm just going with Michelle because I know the work is going to be there.
I actually got him 21, 22. Kev, I think you got him like 24, 25.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have him. I have Sony at 23, Montgomery at 24. I was
Okay,
actually
so-
looking at Dan's ranking.
Yeah, I got him. We both got him back to back, which is funny, and we both got Michelle one grade higher. So, but I got him 20, 21, 22. I think they're with their opponents, they're both going to be roughly around the same amount of points, but just with the way that Michelle looked last week, and they're playing the Jets this week, I know Montgomery's going against the Redskins, who haven't looked great, all except that first half against the Eagles. But yeah, definitely a better matchup for Michelle. So I would go with Michelle.
Yeah, and real quick, in the beginning of the season, week 1, I was telling you guys to start David Montgomery because I thought he was going to be the go-to primary back. But now that I see that he is the go-to primary back after last week, don't get me wrong, the Broncos defense is very good, but they're not shut down, to me by any stretch of the imagination. They were giving up, some plays this week. I think they're a much better pass defense than they are a rush defense. And David Montgomery he just looks slow to me. You know what I mean? He's going to have to show me a whole lot more before I'm, ready to start touting him in my lineups.
Yeah, the Bears offense is just rough right now. They just, on all aspects, they're struggling to get first downs and get points, and we obviously see what the Patriots can do.
Yep. All right, Kev, we're going to do the breakdowns now? Or the ranks?
Yeah, what we're going to do here is talk about a little bit of discrepancy on our ranks. Just basically how we're going to do this to keep it quick. We're going to, one person a position, and it's going to be a guy that we are high on. So Steve, I'll start with you. The guy you are higher on more than us is your guy, Josh Allen.
Yeah, and it's not homerism, guys. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, he's a Bills fan. He likes Josh Allen. And that's not the case, because I have on numerous times bashed Josh Allen for his inaccuracy and his, is just a little bit of turnover proneness that he has. But this week going up against the Bengals, we saw what the 49ers did to the Bengals last week. The Bengals are coming to Buffalo to play, after just getting smashed against the 49ers. To me, I think it's a almost no-brainer to say that Josh Allen is looked much improved passing the ball this year, and I said that in his player profile. If you read up the player profile, if he's better passing the ball this year, this team is going to be good, and so far they look good. I think Josh Allen is easily, first 2 games he has 250 yards passing and at least a touchdown in both games. I could see him going for 250 and 2 in this game and maybe a rushing score. So to me, definitely a guy that if he finishes that way, he's going to be in the top 10. And I like his matchup better than I like a whole lot of other guys' matchups.
All right, Dan, your guy is Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much a matchup because he actually does have a tough matchup, with the corners, Talib and Peters. But I just think he's going to have being at home, a big primetime game. After the big week he had last week with Odell, I think this game is not going to be a game like tomorrow's going to be, where a heavy run and punts. I think this one's going to be a lot of airing out the ball back and forth. So I mean, if it's any kind of shootout like I think it's going to be, then more than likely I think Baker goes for three Bills and maybe 3 touchdowns. And I think that I got Goff pretty high too. I think he could do the same. I think I expect to see some fireworks on this primetime Sunday nighter.
All right, and my guy, I'm riding or dying for the last time. All right, Jameis Winston. I was high on you coming into this season. If you can't throw the ball against the damn Giants defense, then you are just a bust of a first overall pick. And I'm calling it now. If he can't throw the ball against this defense, I was totally wrong on this call. Totally wrong. So, Jameis, I have it number 8 this week. We've seen the Giants get torched in both of their week 1 and week 2 matchups through the air. So, to me, Jameis has an awesome matchup, and it is time for him to put up or shut up. And I think, I think he's going to have a good week. So next we will get into running backs. Dan, we will start with you. Leonard Fournette, you just talked about him a little bit. You have him at number 5 in your rankings. Talk a little.
Yeah, I won't get too in depth because we basically been touching on touching on him when we did the preview of the game, and it's just going to be it's going to be a heavy defensive game, and I just like the amount of touches I think he's going to get. I think there's Tennessee's going to shut. I do think that Tennessee, they don't have to really concentrate too much on Jacksonville's wide receivers. So I think that they're, if they might game plan to take Fournette out of the game, but he's good for 20 and just about every game. He's just a work monster, and he catches the ball out of the backfield too. He's pretty much a 3-down guy. So I think that I'm going to keep him high if he keeps producing. I was high with him going into the year, and seems like he's going to have the kind of year that I was expecting or anticipating, I should say. And I'm going to keep him up there. I think there's, aside from your handful of your Kamara, Saquon, McCaffrey trio, I think he's definitely creeping up to some of those RB1s.
All right, Steve, the guy you are highest on compared to us would be Joe Mixon. I think you're at least 5 spots ahead, high on Joe.
Yeah, for me, the Bills have trouble stopping the run. They have had trouble stopping the run for the past 3 seasons. They are a great pass defense. I'm not scared to say it. They are a great pass defense. But, you can't be great all around. You can't be the 85 Bears where you're just dominant everywhere. You can't be the Baltimore Ravens of, 2000, whatever it was, 11. It's going to be one of those things where the Bills are going to give up yards to running backs. They would rather give up yards to running backs than get beat downfield with the pass. So they are willing to let you run a little bit to take away the pass. And they have fast linebackers, to make up for, the 4, 5, 6 yard carries, that they can catch you. They're not worried about you running 30, 40 yards, downfield. Saquon is just a complete animal. He had a 36-yard touchdown to start that game last week. But, Joe Mixon is not Saquon. He's a good running back, and I think they're going to give him a bunch of touches. He's cleared, practicing in full this week. Not even on the list of, injured players. So I think he is definitely going to be, somebody that is, highly used, this week. So I like Joe Mixon as a top 12 guy. I'm 10.
All right, and the guy I'm going to talk about, I also talked about a little earlier, much same as Dan did, and that's Nick Chubb. I have him at number 7. I think both of you guys have him outside of your Dan, you have him actually number 12, so you still have him RB1.
Yeah, 10th bottom end.
I just think Nick Chubb is one of those guys that is a stud running back. I understand it's a hard matchup. You got Aaron Donald up front, clogging up everything that he could possibly do. But I just think Nick Chubb is a special running back. I think they're going to put the ball in his hands more to take a little bit of the pressure off Baker Mayfield. Baker's been getting pounded back there because he's holding the ball too much. And, I think that Chubb is going to see at least 20 carries in this game. And, for me, Nick Chubb is still going to be a top 10 running back. Next on the list, we have our wide receivers. I will start it off. I'm actually going to talk about a guy that I'm lower on than you guys. I'm going to switch it up a little bit, but I am way lower on Adam Thielen than you guys are. I actually have Thielen at 21, I believe. Yes, I have Thielen at 21. Dan, you still have him as a wide receiver 1. Steve, you have him as a number 13 overall, as number 13, just outside of wide receiver 1. I just have not seen anything from the Minnesota passing game that makes me think that this is going to get better. I understand they're playing the Raiders this week, but this is a ground and pound type team. This is a team that I think that they can beat pretty soundly. And if they get that lead, they're not going to be throwing the ball. They're going to be doing the same thing they did in week 1, which is running Dalvin Cook. And to me, this is just going to be a tough, it's going to be tough to see with Thielen and Diggs because of where you drafted these guys. You're ultimately going to want to start them week in, week out, but this passing attack just hasn't shown you anything. So Thielen is a guy that I am not really highest on going right now. And I've also got Diggs a little lower than I had him, in my yearly ranks. Steve, we'll move on to you. You're high guy. You were high on Larry Fitz. You actually have Larry Fitz as a wide receiver 2 this week. So talk about Larry Fitz.
Larry Fitz just is being targeted in this offense. You know what I mean? This offense is running they're doing what they said they were going to do. They're running, I think it was like, I think I checked it the other day, it was like 77 plays a game. You know what I mean? And that's basically what we said that they were going to do. That's what a lot of people were toting that they were going to do. If they're going to run that many plays, there's going to be a lot of passing. You know what I mean? I think that Larry Fitzgerald is going to see the most, targets in that passing game. And Larry Fitzgerald has shown in both games, he's had a 40-plus yard catch in both games. He had two 40-plus yard catches last week. So they're targeting him deep. And he is the most amazing hands catcher of the football I've ever seen. So, I don't care if there's three guys on him. He finds a way to reel that ball in. You know what I mean? His hand to eye coordination is maybe the best I've ever seen in football. And it doesn't matter if he is not outrunning guys. He doesn't need to. He finds the ball and he plucks it out of the air. You know what I mean? So I like Larry. I think if Larry scores a touchdown last week, he's like the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy football. You know what I mean? So, he legit is to me, almost a number 1 wide receiver. If he continues to get this kind of workload, he is going to finish as a top 15 wide receiver by year's end. And I love Larry Fitz this week.
All right, Dan, the guy you are going to talk about, you are most high on, is Brandon Cooks. You talked a little about him earlier. I actually have him just outside my wide receiver 2s. And Steve has him at 21. You have him all the way up at 12. Talk about Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, I'm high on a lot of the guys that's going into this game. I actually have Odell Beckham as number 1. I just like this game to be a high scoring, passing attack type game. I mean, I know that Todd Gurley's going to get his. He's I don't know what kind of rushing production he's going to have. Browns they're not a good defense, but they're just really not a good defense in the secondary. So I see a lot of checkdowns to Gurley, but Brandon Cooks looked like he played a lot better last week than he did in week 1. Week 1 he was basically not even there. I mean, it was all Robert Woods, and last week he had like 75 and a touchdown. So I think that they're going to definitely keep him incorporated because when you get Brandon Cooks his looks and get him the ball, that offense is smoking. So definitely like Brandon Cooks moving, not only this game but moving forward. I think that they definitely know that they got to get him more involved in the game. He's one of their, besides Gurley, he's their main guy.
Yep. So real quick,
right.
I wanted to throw this in there. So Arizona ran 82 plays week 1. They did go into overtime and then tied in the overtime. So that boosted it up a little bit. But last week they played Baltimore, who runs the most plays in the NFL at 72.5. And they had 54 plays last week. So, the Baltimore Ravens hold on to the ball a lot, but they're averaging 68 plays a game. That's a lot. They're number 5 in the NFL.
Yeah, should be interesting if they can see that. If they can continue to do that, I think that this offense will put up a ton of stats. Will it transition to wins? Who knows? But, stats, they are definitely going to be there for this offense. I actually want to throw in, I'm great. You brought up Odell Beckham's, Dan. I'm glad you did that. I wish nobody said anything about that damn watch he wore in week 1, because I would love to see Aqib Talib rip that shit off of his wrists. I would love it. There would be nothing that would give me more pleasure than Aqib Talib ripping that watch off of.
What did they call it? 2 chains, right? Because he ripped off the chains twice from
Crabtree.
Yeah.
Yep. 2 chains.
All right, so let's get into our tight ends. Steve, why don't you start it off? The guy you are highest on is Greg Olsen. You have Greg Olsen number 7, I believe. Yes, number 7.
Yeah, just, last week I was saying I really didn't like Greg. It looked slow as hell, blah, 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 blah. But guess what? He's still a big part of this offense. You know what I mean? As much as I think he is getting to that point where it needs to be closer to the time he's done. He throws in a game last week where he goes, whatever, I think it was 6 for 113 or something like that. Just that's a dominant performance, especially at the tight end position. So, he has proven throughout the years that he is a very good catcher of the football. He finds ways to get open, even though he's slow as hell. He finds ways to get open. So, to me, it's, a guy that knows how to get open against the Cardinals defense that is going to be throwing Budda Baker at him. And Budda Baker in the past 2 weeks has given up huge games to TJ Hawkinson. We saw the week 1 TJ Hawkinson explosion, and we saw the week 2 Mark Andrews explosion. He is the primary defender on, the opponent's tight end. And he gets Greg Olsen this week. So I could see Greg Olsen having a very big week.
All right, really quick question for you, though. Does that change at all if we wind up hearing that Cam is out?
No, not really, because I still think they see on tape that Budda, is not the greatest defender at stopping, tight ends. So I think, Greg Olsen will still be a big part of this passing game. And honestly, I think it helps him a little bit, really, because I think, he has the trust of the coaching staff, more than any of the other pass catchers on this team. I think it's going to be a super heavy Greg Olsen and Christian McCaffrey game. I have them both in DFS. I've been playing them. I put them in a bunch of lineups, and we'll give you our DFS lineups, this Saturday, guys. But, it's definitely, I like both those guys this week. I think they're going to be heavily targeted if Cam don't play.
Yeah, I actually have Greg Olsen at 14, and the reason why is just simply because I don't think Cam's playing, and I do think that hurts him personally. Dan, well, I'm going to get to you. You are highest on OJ Howard. You're still believing in the guy, huh?
He's just too talented to not be productive. He's just, and kind of like you said, Kev. You said Jameis Winston, what better game to get off than the Giants? I kind of feel the same way for him. I actually moved Mike Evans down a little bit, but I think, his talent and OJ's talent, it's hard to believe that these guys, besides Chris Godwin, this offense isn't doing anything. They're just these super talented receivers are just not producing. And I think it's just a matter of time before they do. Talent wins out in the end. OJ Howard's talented. Mike Evans is talented. Jameis just needs to get his head out of his ass and make plays. This will, if he can't do anything against Giants, then maybe this isn't his year. It's not meant to be. And this Bucs is a train wreck. But with the Drew Brees situation going down, this division's up for grabs. And this is a game that Tampa Bay should beat up on the Giants. Giants, starting Daniel Jones, his first game. He's had a little bit of appearances when they pulled Eli, but this is his first live game action, start to end. And I think Tampa Bay, their defense looked much better last week than anyone has seen them play in years. They actually looked really good last week against. They put pressure on Cam. So I think that. They're gonna do the same thing. I think Todd Bowles is gonna have a similar game plan, and he's gonna go after the young kid and make him make mistakes. And I definitely think that they get Howard more involved in the offense. They have to. You can't be using your second and third string receivers when you have someone as talented as him.
All right, and my guy, my tight end that I'm highest on is Vance McDonald compared to you guys, simply because I saw what happened when Ben went out, and it was check down city, and I think that is going to be huge. I think you're looking at a guy who now can, went from Ben Roethlisberger, who is, air the ball out whenever he gets a chance, to kind of Mason Rudolph, who's just going to check it down and kind of let it play. And I think Vance is a guy who could see 10 targets a game, and for the rest of this year, as long as Mason Rudolph is the quarterback. And I think he's a guy that's going to I'm going to be a lot higher on now, just because I think he's going to see so many more targets, just based off of checkdowns.
Does that mean that you're low? Does that mean you're lower on Juju? You think Juju gets a lot less targets now?
I I don't, because they were the only two guys that really got targets when Mason Rudolph came into the game. Like, there was Juju and there was Vance McDonald. I really didn't like James Washington, Dante Moncrief did not get any
No,
looks from Mason Rudolph.
I dropped both of them way down in the way down in, because Ben's got the big arm and Washington is the speedster, and Moncrief all through train.
Moncrief dropped another ball this week. Like another one right through his hands.
Yeah,
like,
so
he can't catch.
I just don't know if Juju's big playability is pretty much, in jeopardy now. He was just, that's what he was known for last year. He was just making monster play after monster play. So be curious to see, what kind of arm Mason has, and if they kind of keep the same plan that they had last year with Juju.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph had a pretty good arm. I mean, if you look at him in college, he was a deep ball thrower. He's actually why James Washington got drafted. If they played on the same team. So, James Washington went in the second round because Mason Rudolph was chucking that ball deep to him a lot. I mean? Like, James Washington was catching a lot of deep balls from Mason Rudolph. So, I don't think it's a question of Mason Rudolph's arm strength. I definitely don't think that's a thing. I think he was checking down because he just got thrusted into that role. They just were like, hey, listen, we don't lose the game for us. Like, we can come back in this game as long as you're not turning the ball over. So don't turn the ball over. But if he's going to be the guy in this offense, they are a team that takes shots. So I think Mason Rudolph 100% has the arm strength to get it down there. And I actually like James Washington as a pickup. I see a lot of people dropping James Washington because he hasn't been, being used. But now he has his college quarterback throwing to him. They already have a built-in rapport. And if this Pittsburgh Steelers offense is going to start winning, they need to start extending the field. They need to start taking some shots downfield. If they don't, they're going to be in trouble. So, I would expect this team to start taking some shots downfield. Don't be surprised if Mason Rudolph is a little bit better than, most people think.
Yeah, looking at the rankings, like, none of us really dropped Juju all that much. So I don't think any of us think that Juju's going to, see a lot, basically see a huge decline. It's, similar thing with Michael Thomas. We still all have Michael Thomas in our top 10, regardless of, Teddy Bridgewater or Taysom Hill still being a quarterback. So when you got a receiver that's that talented, you're pretty much throwing him the ball, and, it's going to be kind of, it is what it is. I mean, even in this offense a couple of years ago with Landry Jones, Antonio Brown, I still think was, wound up being a number one wide receiver in that year. So, all right. Anything else you guys want to get into? Any defenses you want to talk about?
Yeah, the Cowboys are going to smash. Yeah, I mean, they're owned in like a lot of leagues, so you're most likely have them. But, they're going to smash this week.
They were the best streaming. I talked about this in my article, the streaming defenses article that I write every week. You can check it out on the website. The Cowboys, to start the season, to me, were the best defense to stream because they weren't being drafted in a lot of leagues, and they opened their season up with the Giants, Redskins, and Dolphins, which were three great matchups. So I totally agree with you, Steve. I actually have Dallas number 2 on my defenses. So, I couldn't believe they were that, they weren't being drafted because of, their matchups early, but I guess, most people don't really draft for streaming. They kind of draft for, this is my defense for the year. So,
yeah, definitely.
I like the Buccaneers defense for a week.
I said that in the article as well. Buccaneers were one of my defenses in that article this week as well.
Yeah, I just reiterated what I said earlier, but I think Todd Bowles makes a good game plan, gets after the young quarterback, tries to make him make mistakes.
Yep.
That is 100% my thinking. Todd Bowles is a blitzing defensive coordinator. He likes to send multiple looks at you, and rookie quarterbacks, that's something you tend to have to watch for with them because they don't always pick up the blitz as well as veterans. And another thing is Daniel Jones has not touched the ground. I actually heard that stat. He did not touch the ground one time in preseason.
He will this week.
So,
he will.
when you get into real football and you get a couple hits in the NFL, let's see how good you are then. That's That's when you got to really watch for it. Mine is the Packers. Is another defense I like. Packers played the Broncos this week. We had, Broncos really didn't do anything in the first couple weeks offensively. They struggled against the Raiders, struggled last week until the final drive against the Bears. And the Packers defense is shown to be a really good defense. So, through the first 2 weeks, they've shown to be a very good defense. So they are, a good stream for me. And that, I think, is pretty much wraps up the podcast for tonight. Would you agree, fellas?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
Real quick, the 49ers going up against the Steelers. If Mason Rudolph does have a bad game or where he's trying to throw the ball downfield, the 49ers have been very opportunistic this year. They're only 32.5% owned in ESPN leagues, which is very surprising because they've had two very good games back to back. So, the 49ers defense, definitely a defense to look at.
Yes, the four defense we just thrown out are four of the defenses in my article, and the fifth one is the Tennessee Titans. I could not believe they were at 56% owned. They literally look like a really strong defense, especially after week one when they shut down the Browns. They get Gardner Minshew this week, not necessarily the toughest matchup, and it's a short week. So, usually on a short week, defense holds true. So the Titans are another one.
Definitely. Sounds good.
All right. And that pretty much wraps it up. Don't forget, check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That is www.4thandinchesff.com for a bunch of content. You got these articles that we're talking about. You got a waiver wire column, a buy sell column, a streaming defenses article, wide receiver cornerback matchups. We have blogs where we go into, different football, different things about football that are kind of on our minds. You get to see our rankings every week. And then you can subscribe to our VIP access, which gives you access to our DFS lineups, a DFS article for value plays that we have every week. And you also get the cheat codes, which we're going to keep updated monthly. So every 4 weeks of the season, we're going to update those cheat codes so that you can keep in touch with how each team is doing statistically. And until next time, peace out, guys.
All right, guys. See ya.